Hello, and welcome to Sex, Love, and the Self. So, I have been doing a podcast called Sex, Love, and the Self for quite a while, except for like the last 2 months because I was moving. I left my home in Bogota, Colombia, and made the move to Medellin, Colombia. And hello, and welcome back to Sex, Love, and the Self. If you've never been here before, welcome. I hope that I'm not too jarring for you. And if you've been listening to the podcast version of this for quite a while, you are probably a little surprised that I'm coming back, and particularly in this format. The thing is, I have been, I had to take I had to take a hiatus from the podcast. And I expected it to be very brief, like a week or so tops, because I was moving from Bogota, Colombia to Medellin, Colombia. And that process was infinitely more difficult and drawn out than I had expected. And I had expected it to be difficult and drawn out. But in that time, I also came to the realization that perhaps the podcast is not the best, or at least the only medium that I can slash should, I hate that word, be using to share these ideas. And that's the thing. I want to keep doing this because I have these ideas, these insights in the way that I can grow in my life, the way that I can improve my life. And my clients come to me for that very reason. They also feel like there are ways that they can improve their lives, that they can be happier, that they can be more empowered, that they can love their lives more. And so I want to keep sharing the ideas. I want to keep sharing the perspectives and the energy shifts that we can make, and the ideas about how we can literally empower ourselves to love our lives more by making little adjustments in our belief systems or in our energy or whatever, to manifest the lives that we want, to create the things that we want in our lives. So I'm going to try doing it here for a while and just see how that goes. If you are slash were a follower of the podcast and it meant something to you, please consider giving me a little message about that. And it could be just like an emoji or a thumbs up, whatever. I don't care. But just something to let me know, like, this is a lot of work and I love doing it. I love doing it. But I would maybe explore doing it in another way or in other mediums if it's not really reaching the people that it should. So all that said, here we go. I have so much that I want to talk about in a general sense. And today, specifically, I want to get into the idea of relationships. And quick little sidebar here, that's actually where I want to go with the content in a more general sense. The podcast for a long time has been about that, about the ways that we can grow in relationships, the ways that our relationships are reflecting back to us opportunities to grow, or things that we can look at within ourselves to adjust and change. And I want to continue to do that for sure through the lens of relationships in that context. Because for me, at least, that's where I get the greatest growth. That's where the clearest messages come through most often. And often for a lot of my clients as well. And I don't even mean specifically romantic relationships, although we will definitely be getting into that as well. But all kinds of relationships. Everything in our life is a relationship in some way. And fundamentally, I believe they are connected to and a result of our relationship with ourselves. So that's where I want to focus. The thing that has come up over and over and over the last few weeks or months while I have been on my little hiatus is this idea of the wanting a relationship so badly. And it came up in two forms. So one of my clients that I work with is in a relationship with a man who um, has not been treating her exactly the way she wants to be treated, let's say. And she continues to go back to him and she says, her words, I don't know why. And I understand that on such a deep level, for sure. I was that version of myself for so long, continuing in a relationship that I felt like wasn't working. And I think in part it's because we want to put the responsibility for the fact that it isn't working on someone else, on the other person, or at least I did. And I think my client has that as well a little bit because he is, fundamentally falling short a little bit in the way that anybody would want their partner to engage with them. Also, he's putting great effort forth. He really is trying, and she wants the relationship to work, and she wants to believe in him. And I understand all of that. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't. And that's the other thing that I want to make really clear here. Like, I don't know what's right for other people. I don't know what's right for you or your relationship or anything. I I want to explore how we can empower ourselves, how we can grow in our relationships. And from those places of growth and self-reflection and self-understanding and deep self-love, then we can decide on a day-to-day basis, on a continuing spectrum of time, whether or not we want to stay, whether or not this is still something that is both serving us and something that we are fundamentally wanting to participate in, put ourselves into. So back to my friend, my client. I understand absolutely her desire to give this person in her life grace and to understand and accept his limitations and his humanness and his flaws, because that's essential, of course, in relationships. Grace and understanding, absolutely, particularly in relationships with ourselves, right? And there is a point at which I think we can take a look at it and really try to see, is this serving me? Is this where I want to be going? Is this the version of myself that I want to be in my life? Taking the blame and the responsibility and all of that off of the other person, because ultimately we can do whatever we want. We can stay in relationships that aren't working. We can move forward in relationships that are destined to fail if we want to. There's no reason not. The adjustments that we have to make have to come from within. That decision has to be something that feeds us. So I asked her to do some exploring around the idea of why she continues to go back. What is serving her here? And like I said, I'm not suggesting that she leave this person. I don't know. She may get the greatest growth of her life out of this experience with him. And maybe it is time to leave. I don't know. And she doesn't know, but she can know if she can dig into the why, the intention. The thing is, I have such a deep attachment to this subject matter because I have had quite a series of ridiculous, beautiful, challenging, complicated, dramatic relationships over the course of my life. And I have learned so much from them. And when it was me in this client's position, when I was the one that was desperately clinging to a relationship that I knew wasn't really working, I began to explore why. And I understood, cerebrally at least, that a big part of it was the fact that I really thought that he was the best man in the world. I had pedalized this human to the point where he was a god among men. He was just the epitome of everything a woman wants in a man, in a partner. Everything that I wanted in a man and in a partner, except that he wasn't. I was putting those things on him. I was creating this version of him that I wanted to exist. If he could just change these couple of things that were actually pretty heavy, big things, we'd be perfect. I'd be perfect. We'd be happy. Also, holy bullshit. We cannot continue to project our happiness into a future, particularly into a future with another person, or even in, extrapolating this idea out into life in general. We can't put our happiness into a future under certain circumstances in any context. Like, I'll be happy when I get that job, or I'll be happy when I have that savings account, or I'll be happy when I can make that trip to Belize, or whatever it is. That's not going to work. You can't do that. Happiness is not a condition. It's not a set of circumstances. It's a state of being. It's a decision. It's a choice. And I could have been happy with that guy if I had also been able to say, I am completely happy and content with the version of him that he is right here, right now, the way that he can and is showing up for me and for our relationship. After quite some time of analyzing all of that, I realized that he couldn't, and that I couldn't. I couldn't be happy that way. I couldn't feel fulfilled in a relationship in which I was treated the way that I was. And he didn't treat me badly. I'm not suggesting that at all. He was and is a wonderful human. He just also was not the kind of human that could give me what I wanted, what I really needed. And that was a difficult thing to accept. And it took me a long time to fully leave that relationship, and even longer to like get over it in a real way. But I think that that's what the gold in the relationship was. I mean, it was, a wonderful part of my life in various versions, in various moments. It was wonderful in a lot of ways. But it was also incredibly inspiring. It was also incredibly growth inspiring. I am so grateful that I had that man in my life for the time that I did. And I'm so grateful that it took me as long as it did to heal from that relationship when I ended it, because I came to a whole new place and ended up in a much better relationship, which I'll tell you about later. So, back to my client, this beautiful soul, I think in part she, but definitely we, at least her and I, and I'm assuming, other women as well, other humans, people, it doesn't matter, gender is irrelevant here. We want what we have believed could be. We want the dream. We want the thing that we imagine, the thing that we hoped for, the thing that we believed we were building toward. We want that idealized version, and we are so sure that it can exist that we're unwilling to leave the relationship that we're in, because we're certain that if just little things shifted a little bit, it could be that. It could be that perfect, beautiful thing. And I'm not saying that it can't. Absolutely, that's true. Also, I think it's essential for us to take a step back and look at the reality of this human, of this person, and to remind ourselves there are billions of people on the planet. If the relationship that we're in with this particular person isn't working, that doesn't mean that there won't be someone equally as well suited, or perhaps more well suited for us, out there in the future. And in order to get that, I think we have to prioritize our happiness alone. But I'll get back to that in a second. So, this idea of creating, I'm going to call it an artificial element, because that's what one of my teachers called it when we were speaking about it. And I think it's a beautiful description, kind of title, whatever, for this reality that happens. Because it's a version of this person, but it's a theoretic one. It's the idealized one. It's the, pretty glossed over magazine cover kind of version that we, I think, get caught in. And our hope to create that, and then with this person, with that face, with that human attached to it, becomes so deep, becomes so deeply rooted, that it's really hard for us to take the step to walk away, even when some part of us knows that that's absolutely the right thing to do. And so I think the first thing that we need to do as humans in relationships, if we're feeling like we might be in this kind of situation in which we have idealized a relationship that isn't actually working, but that we're just hoping will magically change. And it might magically change. There are reasons that counselors all over the world help couples stay together and live long, beautiful lives together. Absolutely, it can work. But both people have to be on board. Both people have to be invested. And I think both people have to be having a version of the same dream. And I think that was one of the mistakes that I made in this narrative that I had built up with my partner. Well, obviously long ago, ex-partner. I dreamed of a reality in which he acted differently. And he was trying to tell me over and over again that he didn't want that. But I was trying to tell myself, yes, he did. Absolutely, he wanted that. Who wouldn't want that? A wonderful, peaceful, healthy life. I mean, come on. But it wasn't the life that he wanted. The things that I wanted from him weren't things that he wanted to give. He wanted to be with me, but he didn't want to be the kind of man that I wanted him to be. And that's unfair of me. I'm not allowed. I don't have any right to ask him to be a different version of himself in order to be together, in order to make the relationship work. I can ask for respect. I can ask for certain ways of showing love and support. I can ask for team effort kinds of things. I can ask for certain actions to be taken in the ways that they impact me, in the ways that they affect me. I cannot ask for this person to be fundamentally different. I cannot ask for this person to prioritize different things in their life. I cannot ask this person to have different goals and dreams. That's not for me to ask. And I think that's where my client might be a little bit stuck, because her partner is telling her that he wants these changes. He wants to be a different version of himself. And she wants to be there to support that. And I love that. Absolutely. She has every right to. And what a beautiful gift to give to another human, to be a safe place while they grow and heal. That's such a wonderful thing. And I hope that they get that if that's what they both want. Absolutely. I think part of the problem comes because in her case and in mine, when I look back on my version of that reality, I prioritized his feelings to the degree that I lost myself entirely. I was not able to prioritize my own wants and needs because I made myself feel like I was asking too much. And he said he wanted to be with me. So, of course, he would change, right? But it doesn't work that way. It just can't. So for my client, I encouraged her, like I said, to do some journaling. Specifically, journaling is such a useful way to clarify ideas, to manifest, to draw realities into our world, into our physical plane of existence. But it's also a really beautiful tool for self-exploration. And I asked her to journal about what this relationship is giving her, why she wants it. And we talked about the idea that this is connected to a past issue with a parental figure in which my client felt deprioritized. I don't even think that's a word. She didn't feel prioritized in this other parent child relationship. And that's part of the root of what's going on in her current relationship. And so it brought up this idea that there's kind of a subconscious part of us that is trying to heal old trauma in our new circumstance. For instance, if I suggested to her to just explore the possibility, the idea that if she could get this new partner to prioritize her and to leave behind these behavioral patterns and these habits, let's call them, that are bothering her so much or that are getting in the way of the depth of the relationship that she wants to create with him, and that he verbally is saying he wants to create with her, if she can get him to make that shift, to reprioritize and prioritize her, and in her mind he would be prioritizing himself as well. I know that because I was in that same place, and I was just sure if I could get my partner to see himself clearly, he would want to be different. He would want to make the changes that I wanted him to make. Mm. So if my client can get this shift to happen in this relationship, then it means that she can write off the deprioritization, I'm going to just make that a word now, I guess, of her parental relationship from the past as their problem, not something that is present for her, because obviously there's evidence in this current time and this current reality that she is worth prioritizing, that she is lovable, that she is so precious and sacred, that of course her partner, in whatever context, really, in whatever relational context, would prioritize her, will prioritize her, and make changes necessary to improve the relationship. Also, that's asking for someone outside of us to show us that we are worthy and lovable in a certain way. And I feel like that's just asking for disappointment. And I don't want it to be, I don't want that message to be heavy or like fatalistic in some way or anything like that, because I don't think that it is. I think that it's an opportunity for us to open up and explore how we can give ourselves those things, how we can prioritize ourselves so much, so deeply, that we don't need other people to do it for us in order to prove that we're worth that, because we're doing it for ourselves. We don't need other people to validate our feelings, to tell us that we're lovable, to tell us that we're beautiful, desirable, whatever, because we know that deep within. And I realize that that's a lot easier said than done. And part of the reason that I get that is because I have several other clients that I'm working with that are not in relationships, that are looking for relationships. And in one of those cases, this woman has been working really hard on improving herself, on getting, her own root issues kind of dug out and dealt with, let's say. And she's done great work. She's come a long way in her love of, belief in, support of herself, her prioritization of herself. And that self-love thing, I think, is the essential element. And I think she's still struggling because there is still a part of her that doesn't believe that she's worth it. She doesn't believe she's worth working for. And I say that because she has noticed that anytime she gets attention from men, and much less so now, but in the past, anytime she got attention from any man, there was at least a brief window of time in which her brain launched off into this wild fantasy of what a future with this person would be like, and the kids that they would have, and the place that they would live, and the work that they would do. And she just built this incredibly massive narrative expectation that she put on a person that she didn't really know. And then was heartbroken, of course, when they didn't choose her, when that's not the way they felt about her. But she internalized that as a problem with her, that she wasn't good enough, that she wasn't cool enough, that she wasn't beautiful enough, she wasn't whatever it is. And so that's the part that we've been working on together over the last couple of years. And she's done such great work and gotten to such a beautiful place that now, when an old boyfriend reached out to her, an old lover, let's say, and apologized for the way he treated her all those years ago, she caught herself wanting that again. She caught herself getting wrapped up in that dream again. But she caught herself. She stopped herself from doing that. And she stopped herself from replying to his message with the response that included an indication that she was still open to a relationship. And she struggled with herself. Like, she wrote and rewrote this email so many times because she wanted to be really clear about her messaging. And we talked about it quite a bit because I wanted her, and that's inappropriate of me. She is a friend, so I stepped out of my coach context a little bit there. But I wanted her to come from a place of empowerment. And she brought up this great metaphor of, the guy being at the door, and that she has gotten to a place of self-love and value and appreciation now that is so deep that she can stand behind that door and leave it closed to him. And if he wants her, if he wants the relationship, if he wants to move forward, he has to come and knock on the door. She is no longer going to stand there with the door open, yelling out into the street, "Please like me, please like me. I adore you. Why don't you like me?" Which is energetically what she had been doing in the past, particularly with this guy, but with all kinds of guys. She had built up an artificial element of him. She had made it true in her mind that if they could be together, her life would be happy. They would be happy. He would be happy. And the logical part of her was completely overridden by the dreamy heart part of her, which is important. I don't want to write that off. We need that. We need to be able to imagine in order to manifest. That's essential. But the logical part of her knew that they didn't want the same things. The logical part of her knew that he was not into her in the way that she was into him. The logical part of her knew that she was going to get her heart broken. But she totally ignored that version of her for so long. And now, years later, she can stand in that power and say, I deserve someone that's knocking on the door. I deserve someone who is going to work hard to step into, up to my sacred space of self love and appreciation and respect and appreciation and knock. And not just once, but like work at it. And I'm not suggesting game playing here. I've always hated that idea. I don't want to manipulate someone else's feelings by manipulating my own energy to pretend that I'm less interested than I am or something. I hate that. However, I do want to stand in my power. I do want to value myself above the relationship. I do want to love myself so profoundly that if the person in my life walks out of it, I know I will be okay. Yes, there will be sadness, but I know that I will be okay. And I finally gotten to that point, woohoo, after decades. I'm in a wonderful relationship. I'm also in a relationship that I cannot imagine is going to last forever and ever. But I didn't think it would last more than a couple of weeks. And here we are 6 months later living together. The point is, regardless of this man, whom I feel so grateful to have in my life, I'm happy. And if he walks out of my life, I am so happy alone that yes, there would be sadness, but also I will happily go back to my single life without a doubt, without hesitation, with joy. And I know that I am fundamentally a lovable person and that there will be other people that come into my life and love me. And even if there isn't another romantic version of that, I have my best friend. And she and I know that the other person is our platonic soulmate. And that reality, those two realities combined, the truth that I love who I am and love being alone, combined with the reality that I know that I won't be starved for companionship, because despite the fact that my friend lives on the other side of the world, I know that I have her. I know that I have that connection, that safe place, that emotional support system that we all need and often go looking for in our romantic partners. And our romantic partners can, and maybe even should, hate that word, give that to us. But they're not going to be able to give that to us exactly the way that we expect them to. So we have to have it within ourselves. And then if they do give it to us, and especially when they give it to us in ways that are unexpected and delightfully so, that's just icing on the cake. That's just an even better situation than what we thought we had. There's nothing wrong with that. So my third client that I wanted to talk about, the third woman that I'm working with that I wanted to talk about, it has been looking for a relationship for a long time as well. And she is really struggling with the dating scene in general. And I get that 100%. It's exhausting. It can be exhausting. However, the thing that we're just beginning to explore together, we're just starting to work together. And the thing that we're beginning to explore together is this idea that for her, in her work, it's very logic based. She is very logic based. And so the dating thing feels like a numbers game. She has to go on, however many thousands of dates before she'll find someone that's truly compatible with her. And like the whole soulmate idea, a whole other level. I mean, just imagine the numbers game on that one. If soulmates even exist, do they? Do we know? I don't know. But the suggestion that I'm offering her is to adjust her energy about this a little bit, because I think that her love of herself, her comfort in herself, her stability in herself, her unshakable confidence is the thing that will draw to her magnetically, energetically speaking, in terms of manifestation, but also just science. Like attracts like. And instead of going on hundreds of dates to find somebody that's compatible with her, someone that's worth investing more time with, why not invest that time in herself, in loving herself so fundamentally, so deeply, appreciating herself, respecting herself, adoring herself, loving on herself so often, so naturally, that she draws into her life other people that do that too. A man that would maybe do that for her, with her, alongside her. And she, of course, will do that for him. And that's the point that I really wanted to get to today, is just this idea of refining our energy in a way to draw to us the realities that we want. And that's, I think, what I have sort of stumbled into doing, knowing that that's what I wanted to do, not knowing how to do that, and having the blessing of countless teachers and guides and coaches and whatever over 2 decades to get me here. But I can finally say that I am fundamentally happy, period, regardless of outside circumstances. And I have drawn to myself a truly magical relationship for however long it lasts. It may be very short lived and maybe it won't. I don't know. But I don't worry about that. There's no part of me that feels this like deep gut punch if this person leaves. And I've heard people suggest that that reality maybe would be indicative of some version of distance, like perhaps I don't really care about this person if I'm that willing to let them go. But I have to disagree with that. I just, I mean, isn't that the depth of the love of a mother for their child? That they love them so much and so deeply that they let them go out into the world, vulnerable, to be damaged and hurt and scared and struggle through on their own and figure their shit out. And I feel like that's not untrue in romantic relationships. And I don't want to be desperately clinging to somebody that maybe isn't in love with me anymore. If he gets to a point in which he's not in love with me anymore, in which this relationship is no longer serving or supporting him, I want him to leave. I want him to have that. I want him to have a woman that would give him, that can give him everything that he wants and needs, because he deserves that. He's a wonderful man. And I deserve that because I'm a wonderful woman. And if I can open that up and let that be free, let him be free to leave when the time comes, if the time comes, we both have a better chance at being happy together right now. Because there's no pressure on him to make me happy or to stay in the relationship for me, or because he loves me so much he doesn't want to hurt me. He knows that I'm happy alone. He knows that I have no problem going back to that reality. And he knows that I care so deeply for him. So he works hard to be an important part of my life. He works hard not just to be a team player in keeping up the house or paying bills or whatever, but he works hard to show me and remind me that I am lovable, that he loves me. And I do the same for him because I want to, not because our relationship is somehow pressed out into the future and has to last, but actually because it doesn't. I feel like I give more. I am more open in my genuine love, maybe not in the words, but in the genuine love that I give to this person. Because I know it's temporary. And maybe it won't be. Maybe we'll grow old together. That's certainly not outside the realm of possibility. But ultimately, all things are temporary. All relationships end. There's a death at least. And even if they don't end, even if they do last happily ever after, they change. We change in them. And knowing that makes the moments that I do have with this guy so precious, so precious. And it gives me the freedom to be able to say, if he's not the right guy anymore, if this is not the relationship that is going to complement or support the long-term dream I have of the kind of person I want to be, the kind of relationship I want to have, I can let it go and not feel that heart-aching desperation to hang on to it. And I don't think that means that I care about him less. And I don't think that that means that he cares about me less. And I don't know what's right for anybody else. These are just the thoughts that I've had about my version of life, my version of relationships, those of my clients and friends. And if it resonates with you, I hope that it feeds you in some way. I hope that it empowers you in some way to take whatever step you want and need to in your reality, in your relationship, to feel more empowered, and to be more loved, not by the other person, but by yourself, to yourself, for yourself. Love, 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 love. Okay, so that's it for my rant today. If you are still following the podcast version of this, like I said, please send me a little something to let me know, and I'll keep posting it there. Otherwise, I'm going to switch to just doing this here. And in the future, we're going to be having guests on the podcast. I'm so excited to talk to different people about their relationships and the struggles and the joys and the lack thereof sometimes. So feel free to share this. Feel free to like it. I hope you subscribe if you like this content. I will be back on a regular basis. I'm thinking monthly right now, but I'm not entirely sure yet. And we're going to keep talking about the way we can love and empower ourselves more to have happier relationships. I hope you're all doing well. If you want more info on any of my work, the books, the workshops, the coaching, private sessions, tarot card readings, it's all on my website, authorjacquelineLene.com. CoachJacquelineLene.online. Take care. I hope you have a great day.